Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. You can send us a tweet at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. That is at Bomani_Jones. Well, guess we got to figure out how we going to make it through the rest of the week because ain't going to be no game 6, shawty. The NBA Finals are over. The Golden State Warriors, for the second time in the last 3 years, have won a championship. We talked to Rick Bucher about this yesterday. He talked about how long it had been since there had been a championship won locally for one of the teams. And I said 1975 when the Warriors won the championship that year. But no, technically 1989, right? The A's won in San Francisco after the earthquake. By the way, Shannon, do you remember any of the last two games of the 1989 World Series?
Just remember the earthquake.
It's like they never happened. Like it was a sweep. It ended at that point. But it's really, those are the two most forgettable games in the history of baseball because, a whole lot happened right before. But they got it, man, and they was lit out there last night. Boy, they were lit. You have to say nothing but congratulations to the Warriors. I guess we got the chance at some point to get into all those big old historical discussions. But in spite of the margin of victory, I thought last night was a good game. I thought the Cavs, it stayed closer later than any of us, I think, thought that it could have. We're coming in the last 2 minutes, and it was going to be unlikely that the Cavs could have pulled something off. But with JR pulling them shots out his keister like it was, it seemed like they had a possibility to win that game. Hey, we got a good one to close this out. We only got a 5-game series, but I don't feel like any of those games were just lopsided from the beginning, right? Like from I guess maybe game 4 where the Cavs won, but I didn't feel like we had any of these games where the second the game started, you were like, oh, yeah, this is over. Yeah, this is a wrap. No, that's not what we got. Like, I'm not one of those people that requires a game to be a nail-biter all the way to the end for me to find it interesting or to find it compelling. And so, as a result, I found this series to be a very, very interesting one. I know the Cavs got to be like, oh, so now you show up, Tristan Thompson. Welcome to the game, buddy. Welcome to the game. We've been waiting on you. Of course, the guys on the bench were like, no, we don't want to play today. Why would we do that? 7 points from the dudes off the bench. Kyle Korver played 18 minutes, gave him 3. Richard Jefferson, 4. Darren Williams, you know what Darren Williams gave him. None. And your man Kevin Love, by the way, put up a stinker on the way out the door. He put up a good old thanks-for-nothing performance for them.
All right, Kevin Love got into foul trouble early. What do you think about the officiating calling it close early?
I feel like they kind of had to, except that didn't stop us from having a little bit of a kerfuffle, a brouhaha between David West and Tristan Thompson. And it was very interesting because when those two got into whatever it was, you knew they weren't going to fight. Nobody's going to fight in an NBA Finals game. These dudes don't fight when the games barely count. They're not fighting in an NBA Finals game. None of us thought that they were going to fight, but they were so close to each other that I'm surprised there was not some of that accidental smoochage. Like they got so close and they were so lip to lip on each other. And where I found it confusing was, hey man, now that we have clearly established that you gentlemen are not going to fight, y'all can back up, right? Is that fair? Like once it becomes clear that you guys know you're not going to fight, y'all can back up. Of course, your man JR came over late. I'm going to put somebody right fast. Isn't that kind of the role JR played in the last NBA fight worth discussing? The Nuggets and the Knicks, isn't that what he did there? Didn't he show up late to that one? Didn't he get the biggest suspension in that one, too?
I have to check. It was either him or Nate Robinson. I have to check.
Oh, I forgot about Nate Robinson, who had been waiting all day long for somebody to bring up a fight. Nate Robinson was the Steven Jackson of that particular one. Like, oh, man, I didn't know we was going to be fighting. I'd have worn my other shoes. But, yeah, man, that's the game that we got. LeBron, 41, 13, and 8, all for naught. That's all it was, all for naught. They got a great game out of Kyrie. Kyrie this time was the one that had the good plus-minus. He was the only guy in the starting lineup for the Cavs that had a positive plus-minus, in spite of him doing things like dribbling out 20 seconds of the shot clock. Like, the Cavs have to feel like, they shot 43 from the floor. 53 from the floor. They shot 46 from 3. Lost the game by 9 points. Right? Like, I don't think the Warriors put up a good, not great offensive performance, though they managed to get to the line a decent bit, I guess more than you would necessarily expect from that team. But this isn't like Cleveland didn't play well in this game. There were others where they didn't. This one, though, I also do think it became clear that this team is just all about, all right, y'all two going to have to make all the shots and all the passes, which is a recipe for disaster. by the way. Like, one thing the Warriors have going for them as a staff, as a label, as a crew, nobody has to make all the passes. Like, Steph is a very good playmaker, and he gives you that, but there's nobody on that squad that's required to make all the passes. Like, it's a little different this year because they got Jaja and JaVale McGee, but you think about last year, when they roll out there with Bogut, with Curry and Draymond Green, you got three guys that can make the pass to make it happen. The Cavs, no. They're not really playing in that. It's like LeBron got the ball, Kyrie's got the ball, and if these other cats ain't making shots, and, other than JR, who was just like, hey, guys, maybe I should have showed up a little bit earlier, my bad. Who knew JR was going to be the one to be like, yo, we need this game? Somebody got to do it. It might as well be me.
LeBron and Kyrie scored or assisted on 78% of the Cavs' points in the finals.
78? 78. So once again, how is it that LeBron, no matter the team that we put around him, we wind up at the end of the year being like, yeah, man, this dude needs a little more help. Right? The only time we don't say that is if they win the championship. Well, we didn't say it in 2011 either, even though they did need a little more help. But that's that. Shout out to the Warriors, though, man. Steph Curry scored 27 points a game in the finals, and none of us thought for a second that he would be the MVP. 34 points in an elimination game. None of us thought for a second that he would be the MVP. 34 in 10 assists, by the way, and none of us thought for a second that he would be the MVP.
To that same point, when it comes to finals MVP, yeah, we get it why Durant would have won, but who comes in second? Steph Curry on the winning team or LeBron on the losing team?
I would have had LeBron. Right? Like, I am one of those people who can look and say, okay, maybe the player on the losing team was better than anybody else that was on the winning team. But it's hard to be like finals MVP for a team that doesn't win. I mean, that's a difficult one. I did, except when we out here like manufacturing reasons to give the dudes the MVP. For example, when they gave that MVP to Andre Iguodala in the 2015 finals, the one where the Warriors won. When they gave him the MVP there, I'm like, come on, man. Nobody was watching that and being like, wow, what an amazing series from Andre Iguodala. I mean, we weren't there. Now, the other problem is LeBron was shooting something like 35% from the floor because he had to do every single thing for that team. But I did not feel like there was anybody on the Warriors that had truly merited being the finals MVP, especially not after we watched Steph have a couple games where he got the clamps from the Delmeister. Like, it just wasn't there. But no, I mean, I saw Tom Haberstroh wrote the thing on ESPN.com about why LeBron should be the MVP. We had him all, and he made very, very compelling arguments. But in the end, they didn't win the series. And if LeBron had gone off for like 58 in this, then maybe we'd have been talking about something. But they didn't win the series, man. They didn't. So I can't go with the LeBron as guy. But for second place, yeah. You can be on a loser team. I can feel like you're the second place guy for the MVP. And Steph, are we being too hard on Steph? Because he scored 27 points a game in this. But did you walk away from this feeling like, man, Steph played really well in the finals after scoring 27 points a game in said finals? Like, did anybody walk away feeling like that? I did not. Another interesting thing, too, about the Warriors, they made an interesting, I would say, strategic adjustment in this. In this last game, Iguodala played 38 minutes, right? Like, they were like, okay, we got this, we got the big guys who put them out there. JaVale McGee didn't even touch the court. They were just like, all right, we got to do what we can, put our best defensive players out here. And LeBron still scored 41 on 19 of 30 shooting. With 13 boards. And with 8 assists. Yeah, so that did happen. Now, we got Draymond Green here from the post game. Here he is talking about what the big change was that made them unstoppable.
Steph definitely took a backseat to start the season until he realized we didn't need him to take a backseat. We need you to be aggressive as you're going to be. And, when Steph turned that corner, I think it was after Christmas Day. When he turned that corner, we became almost unbeatable. And, that's what we needed. And so, there was this whole thing of who's going to take less shots? Is it going to be Steph, KD, Clay? None of them. The ball is going to find who it need to find at the end of the day, and that's those three guys. And we need them guys to shoot the ball and score for us, and they did that.
See, that's where you got to give Steve Kerr a whole lot of credit. The fact that this team could be like, the ball's going to find whoever's supposed to get the shot. Right? Like, I mean, to have those guys come on the team and just be like, okay, now who's going to take fewer shots? Oh, we all going to get shots, baby. Don't worry about that. Every last one of us is going to get shots. And every last one of them did get shots. And interestingly, one guy did sacrifice shots, and it was Draymond Green. And he's the dude who doesn't trip over that thing. Like, he's not worried about it in that way. But no, credit to the Warriors, man. Like, this is just like, you want to go, like, I go through the box score and you look at all the different things individual players did to get this, to get that, or whatever it was. But this really came down, I think, to what Draymond said there right there. Ball going to find who's open. The ball's going to find who's supposed to get the shot. And then from there, you have legitimately, I think we could argue, 3 of the greatest shooters who ever lived. And the ball is then going to find them. Yeah, congratulations, because you ain't going to see something like this every day. Well, except for maybe like the next 2 years from those guys. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Give us a call. Coming up next, Kevin Durant got the ring. Is it his league now? You're listening to ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. Aaron Goldhammer of ESPN Radio in Cleveland will join us next segment. Aaron Goldhammer will join us at 4:30 Eastern. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. And hey, time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, half the cost. No contracts. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. There we go. All right, we were just talking last segment about just how this went with the Warriors and them winning this championship as of last night. By the way, even like I didn't have a rooting interest in these finals, but I always love watching championship celebrations. Like, everybody's so happy. It's like being at a wedding, right? Like, everybody at the wedding is always so happy. And so you look there for all those people in that crowd. And remember this about Warriors fans. Now, granted, this is the second championship, so they've had this feeling before. But, man, they've been down for that squad for a long time, and for most of that time, they were sorry. Like, can you imagine what it must be like if you're one of those people that held season tickets for the Warriors for like 30, 40 years, and you got to experience this in the same building, by the way, where they were sorry, right? Like, I think it's dope for the Warriors they were able to win this in that building before they moved to the new one. They win it in the old creaky place that's loud as hell. Like, I can't imagine how dope that was for everybody. And, of course, I can't imagine how dope it was for Kevin Durant, as he was the guy, and JaVale McGee. Those are the two guys, the big guys that got their first championships, right? Like, you just saw it in Durant's face all over it, just like, yo, man, I got a championship. And I think there's something interesting about guys winning championships in sports that we lose sight of, which is very few of us have anything that we've dreamed of since we were children, right? Like, you could say I wanted to be a doctor when I was growing up or whatever it was, but, like, I didn't want to be a basketball player when I grew up, but I've dreamed of winning a championship. You know, like, you didn't have to be in that world to dream of that sort of thing. So imagine that, like, that is your dream, and you're standing there, and the clock is running out, and you're like, oh, snap, this is about to happen. Like, I know this is about to happen. And it happened, you know? And so here's Kevin Durant talking about the moment he realized that they won that title.
It was 55 seconds left, and I went over to half court line, and I bent down. I was like, is this really happening? And Dre was like, keep playing to the end. Andre Iguodala was like, keep playing. We got 50 seconds left. And I'm like, bro, we about to win the title.
They hit Kevin Durant like he was a rookie. Like, Kevin Durant's like, isn't this cool? We've done this before. Get to the end. Now, the question's been asked now. Kevin Durant won Finals MVP, won a championship over LeBron. Does this mean that the league belongs to Kevin Durant? No. No. And that's no knock on Kevin Durant. It's a rare situation where we have it like right as we have it right now, where the league belongs to LeBron and every storyline basically runs back through LeBron. The league belonged to Michael Jordan for a very long time. But serious question, at any other point, has this league ever belonged to one player? Like the 1960s, you could say that the league belonged to the Celtics, but you wouldn't say that the league belonged to Bill Russell, right? The 70s, which, you know, barely happened as far as most of us, you know, think of or talk about when it comes. The 80s didn't belong to Bird. They didn't belong to Magic and to Taylor. They didn't belong to Jordan. Like, the league was the league. Now, the league belonged to Jordan in the 90s. I think Howard Bryant had made this point on Twitter. Like, the league belonged to Jordan in the 90s. The league belongs to LeBron James right now. Even when LeBron loses, the league belongs to LeBron. And then after LeBron leaves, the league's just going to go back to being the league, right? And, again, that's not a knock on Kevin Durant, right? Kevin Durant is a great player. Kevin Durant is the second best player in the NBA. But the league isn't his, and I get the feeling Kevin Durant doesn't want the league to be his. Like, he didn't go to Golden State to be like, I can take over the league. He went to Golden State to be like, yo, I've got some guys here around me, so it doesn't have to be all about me, which is just interesting because it's kind of a very millennial sort of outlook on how to do this. And this is what I mean by that. I said earlier today on Twitter that Kevin Durant was, quote, a bit millennial. Shannon, this is going to shock you, but when I said that, all the millennials popped up, sounded real sensitive.
Sounding real, I don't know, millennial?
Yeah. So here's what I meant in that case. And you guys tell me if I'm wrong about this. We did an interview on Highly Questionable with Kevin Durant a few years ago. And we were trying to get Michael Beasley stories out of him because he's known Michael Beasley forever, right? And everybody wants Michael Beasley stories. And so Durant gets to talking about Bees, and he says, well, you know, one thing to remember about us, man, is that, you know, he's still just a kid, man. We just kids trying to figure out our way. And I don't understand why y'all are so hard on us as we're kids just trying to figure out our way. And I'm like, what the hell you mean y'all are kids, right? Like, I am of a generation where if you were a kid, that wasn't something you were bragging about. Like, we were certainly wrong about being men when we thought that we were men, but I felt like we weren't ever on some, hey, man, you know, we just a bunch of kids out here. Like, that was never it. This generation seems to be much more in line to extending childhood in that sort of way, right? Like, they kick it just a little bit different. They're also a bit more, like, publicly emotive and a bit more honest about their sensitivities and insecurities than people who are my age and older, right? Or I'll put it to you a different way. The preeminent, like, cultural artistic force in the mainstream when I was coming up was gangster rap, right? You could like it, love it, like it, hate it, whatever it is, but gangster rap, that was the preeminent force in that way. You know what the preeminent force was for a lot of these millennials? Kanye. No knock on Kanye. I like Kanye. Kanye ain't no gangster, right? Like, Kanye's spitting it to you according to something else. Like, they generationally have some attitudes that are a little different than older people. And I can't imagine someone as good as Kevin Durant from a previous era really wanting to be like, yeah, I mean, I could carry a team, but who wants to do that? And I got no problem with him for the fact that he made that decision. Like, I'm not casting any, like, there's no judgment that I'm raining upon him because that's how he feels, right? Like, I'm not. But that is how he feels, you know? So when we say, hey, man, the league's not going to be Kevin Durant's, I don't think Kevin Durant cares because Kevin Durant doesn't even care if the Warriors are his. Now, take LeBron James, who by definition would count as being a millennial. LeBron James knows the league is his, seems to kind of like the fact that the league is his, and damn sure every team that he's been on has been his, right? Durant's wired a little bit different. You don't believe Kevin Durant's wired a little bit differently? Here's him talking about the meaning that he found in Golden State.
The toughest challenge was to come in here and see how I can help Steph get better, how I can help Clay get better, Draymond, Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, JaVale McGee, the whole team, just see how I can help them get better. That was more important to me than anything. Proving haters wrong, like that's cool. That's cool for me to talk about on Instagram or Twitter, but like you don't concern me. I'm coming in and working every day, seeing how I can be the best teammate I could be, the best player I can be. And I knew at some point in my life that it'll come around for me. So I just try to stay with those principles and keep grinding, man. I'm kind of lost for words right now.
Yeah, that dude doesn't care about whether the league is his. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not where he is. He does not care whether or not the league is his. And I got a lot of respect for him being like, look, I'm just trying to be the best I can. I'm trying to control the part that I can control. Because he sounds like he's a lot happier than that sociopath Michael Jordan, who's always out here for somebody to beat. Michael Jordan doesn't like winning. Michael Jordan likes beating people. Two different things. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable networks. All right. Largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks, excuse me. All right, coming up next, how are they feeling in Cleveland? We'll talk to my man Aaron Goldhammer about that on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80. We've been talking a lot about Upside.com, telling you it will save you or your company big on business travel and that you'll get a big gift card every trip you buy. Sounds too good to be true, right? Go to Upside.com and check it out. Super fast searches, by the way. For instance, in less than 2 minutes, you can have a few awesome choices on American Airlines flights to Chicago at the end of next month that work for you and a bunch of big-name hotels. Your options could get you a $268 gift card and save your company $268. Taking a business trip? You'd be crazy not to use Upside. Spend less of your company's money and get more rewards for yourself. Upside's the real deal. You may wind up with a $268 gift card. Trust me, go to Upside.com today. Plus, when you use promo code Bomani, you're guaranteed to get at least a $100 Amazon gift card your first trip. That's code Bomani to get a $100 gift card free. Save big on travel, get a big gift card, and great customer service every trip. See what your next trip's worth today. Upside.com. That's Upside.com. Minimum purchase required. See site for complete details.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, you know, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Just like our next guest, he's an ESPN radio host in Cleveland, Ohio. His name is Aaron Goldhammer. Now, Aaron, is interesting. For people who don't know, you and I first got acquainted 10 years ago. I'd written a column saying the 07 Cavs were the worst team since the merger to make the NBA Finals. Now we're full circle 10 years later, and the Cavs went against maybe the best team we've ever seen in the NBA Finals. Does it feel now after this loss kind of like that one where you just look up and realize, hey, man, we had something going on the other side that was more than we could deal with?
Bomani, I've decided something today, and that is that I think the 2016-17 Cavs are the best team ever in NBA history to not win the NBA championship.
Really?
I think in the vast majority of years, if you look back over the course of the last 20 or 30, I think this Cavs team would have beaten Spurs teams. I think it would have beaten both Warrior teams. I think they would have had a shot against some of the Jordan teams, and I think they would have had a shot against some of the teams in the 80s. But I think they're better, for example, than the 87 Celtics. I think they're better than the 84 Lakers. And they just happened to run into an all-time buzzsaw with Golden State, and the Warriors were so good they beat them in 5. Although I also think this series was closer to me than a 5-game series. I think the Cavs had a shot to win both Game 3 and Game 5. And I think if you play the series over again, the Warriors probably win 8 out of 10 times, I would say. But there are also a few times where the Cavs probably get some bounces to go their way, and this thing may go 7 and they may steal it. So I thought the series was closer than the 5-game result. And I think the gap between the two teams isn't as huge as some people are making it out to be today.
Now, I agree with you in a sense that this series was definitely closer than I think people gave it credit for being. Because I feel like the first halves in all these games were pretty competitive, except for Game 4 where the Cavs actually won. But you're really putting them up there with the 84 Lakers?
Yeah, I am. I think Magic had a lot to learn in 84. These are things, again, they're hypotheticals we'll never be able to answer. Could Tristan guard Kareem in the post? You know what I mean? Like, I can't. These are things that I can't totally speculate on. So I maybe am exaggerating. I don't know. The 84 Lakers, if you got in a time machine, might beat the Cavs in 7. But my point is that they're one of the best teams ever. Certainly they're in the conversation as one of the best teams ever to come up short. And the reason they didn't win is because how good the Warriors are, more so than any shortcomings that this Cavs team has.
All right, we're talking to Aaron Goldhammer of ESPN Radio in Cleveland on the right time. See, the reason they gave me pause, though, is this is a 51-win team that we weren't sure could play any defense until this season started. Like, is this one of those teams that you wind up developing a different sort of affection for because of what the ride was like?
Yeah, I mean, I think they realized the whole season and talked about, Bomani, that the regular season didn't matter to them. And they weren't healthy, and there were some games where they tanked. I mean, Ty Lue even used the word tank in a press conference where there was a game in Memphis where they decided not to play a healthy LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love because they were resting and trying to prepare themselves for the postseason. And I think the injuries that they had prevented them from developing good defensive habits over the course of the whole year. But I thought once they hit the postseason, they improved dramatically in that area. Looking forward to next year, I think defense is an area where they know they need to get even better. But I think, again, their offense was so historically great, Bomani. I think that it would have overcome the defensive ineffectiveness in so many cases throughout basketball history, but not against this Warriors team.
Now, is part of how this team is going to improve defensively next year by, getting different players at the top of the masthead?
We did a poll on our show this morning about the future of the Big Three in Cleveland. 50% of Cleveland wants to trade one of the Big Three. I'm guessing they don't want to trade LeBron, although we did have a guy call us today, or maybe he sent an email suggesting that the Cavs should consider that, which I think is crazy. The idea would be if you're going to lose him in 2018 anyway, you might as well get something for him now. I think it's a ridiculous idea. Most people would say Kevin Love would be the one of the Big Three that they would want to move. The Cavs are destined to have that conversation. Will they make calls about Kevin Love? Yes. Will they receive calls about Kevin Love? Yes. Do I think Kevin Love will be traded? No. Because I just don't know what's out there available where the Cavs feel like they're going to give themselves a better chance to beat the Warriors without Kevin Love in the mix. But I can't totally look into the crystal ball and guarantee that that's not the case. So I wouldn't be stunned if Love was moved at some point this summer. But if I was a betting man, I would bet on it not happening just because I don't know if the right deal is going to materialize.
All right, talking to Aaron Goldhammer of ESPN Radio in Cleveland on the right time. Wouldn't it help if we knew if the Cavs, who the general manager was going to be? Because one of the quiet things that if you're a casual basketball fan, you don't pay that much attention to is that the Cavs general manager, I think his contract expires this year, and there's no compelling reason why hasn't signed one, right?
Well, David Griffin's contract expires on June 30th, and here's what we know, Bomani. He and Dan Gilbert, the Cavs owner, have talked about a new contract. But Dan Gilbert, according to ESPN's Brian Windhurst, who we had on our show earlier today, has not made a formal offer to David Griffin for a contract. It's crazy, Bomani, because in Golden State, for example, they made the finals and won the title, and they gave Bob Myers, their chief executive, a contract extension. And then they lost the championship but won 73 games the next year, and they ripped up that first contract and gave him another one. The reason being, and this is all from Brian, from what he told us on our show earlier today, that they were afraid of other teams coming in and stealing him away, paying him more money, giving him a bigger opportunity. And they wanted to make sure he was so integral to building their team, drafting Draymond, Clay, and Steph. They wanted him a part of their future, so they locked him up. The Cavs have not done that with David Griffin, which leads me to believe they don't feel the same way about Griff as Golden State does about Bob Myers. I think Griff is a tremendous executive. I think there are 28 teams in the league who would love to have him running the show. And I think if he was out on the open market, he'd have a job in 5 seconds. But I'm not sure the Cavs feel like he's at the core of building what they have. He didn't draft Kyrie. He didn't convince LeBron to re-sign. Not to take anything away from Griff. The JR moves, there are moves he's made that have been tremendous. I just don't think the owner, Dan Gilbert, feels like David Griffin is a must-have for the Cavs to compete for a championship next year in the same way that he feels like LeBron, Kyrie, the players, the coaching staff are must-haves.
All right, last thing, right fast before we go, just because you mentioned it. Are you guys really buying into the whispers that LeBron might leave in 2018?
I don't know, Bomani. I don't. At this point, if you'd asked me a year before he left the first time, I would have told you that I thought he was going to stay. And then if you asked me a year before he came back, I would have told you there's no way he's going to end up back in Cleveland a year from now. We have to know what the landscape of the league looks like a year from now. And until I know that, I can't definitively say one way or the other. But I will tell you that I wouldn't put it past him. We have that history together, right, of him leaving. And I think him leaving the second time would be much different than the first because he delivered Cleveland a championship. And I think the message from Cavs fans if he left again would be, thank you. You're welcome back here anytime. And we wouldn't burn anyone's jersey in effigy in a parking lot or, go on the radio raving and ranting the way we did the first time. It's his right at that point, if he decided he wanted to go somewhere else. If I was a betting man, I would say LeBron will play in Cleveland the rest of his career, because right now it looks to me like the Cavs are the team that has the best shot at beating the Warriors. Really, at the end of the day, I mean, the Lakers, what do the Lakers have right now? But next summer I might look at the Lakers and say, oh my gosh, Lonzo Ball's the rookie of the year, Russell Westbrook and Paul George are signing there too. This is the next hot place for the NBA. But at this point, I can't project that. I don't know is the answer to the question. But I don't know is different than yes, and it's different than no. It's somewhere in the middle.
All right, Aaron Goldhammer, ESPN Radio in Cleveland. Thanks so much, my man. I appreciate it.
You're great, Bomani. Thank you.
All right, now ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Now you can test drive Snapshot to see how much you can save before switching to Progressive. Visit progressive.com/snapshot. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the right time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Thanks to Aaron Goldhammer of ESPN Radio in Cleveland for joining us last segment. Chris Haynes of ESPN will join us in the 5 o'clock Eastern hour. Remember, if you miss anything live, check out the Right Time podcast, available on the ESPN app. There are rivalries, and then there's Celtics versus Lakers. Celtics-Lakers, Best of Enemies, a 5-hour 30-for-30 film event, chronicles the storied franchise's epic clashes and relives the Boston-LA battle from both sides with sensational footage and fresh, insightful interviews. The 3-part documentary will premiere with parts 1 and 2 back-to-back tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, and tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, you can watch part 3 on ESPN. Again, Celtics-Lakers, Best of Enemies, a new 30-for-30 film premieres tonight. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. We're just talking to Aaron Goldhammer about the whispers of LeBron leaving after the 2018 season. His contract, remember, you've been doing those one-year player option contracts. Well, he did that the first year, right? The first year he signed a one-year player option contract, played the year out with Cleveland, opted out, 1 year player option, opted out, then opted back in for a 2-year deal, and that deal is up in 2018. Now, this I can tell you. I talked to somebody who, I think everybody's here. Everybody's talking about the whispers that they've heard about LeBron leaving the Cavs. The first time I heard a whisper about it was in September. I had dinner with somebody, and they brought it up. Now, what was funny is that I was here with somebody a few days ago, and we were talking. It was like, I was like, so you hearing about, maybe LeBron leaving Cleveland? He's like, yeah, I've heard it. And we were both like, I'm wondering when more people are going to talk about this, because what happens is a matter like that hits critical mass, and everybody that knows a little bit is just waiting for the right moment to say, well, I hear, And I swear it was the next day. It was basically the next day. Then everybody and their mom started talking about what if LeBron leaves Cleveland? What if LeBron leaves Cleveland? I don't know if he's going to. I am 0 for 2 on figuring out what the hell LeBron James is going to do when it comes up on free agency, right? Like, I don't feel like these last couple matter, but in the big ones, yeah, I'm 0 for 2 in figuring out what he's going to do. I did not think he was going to go to Miami, and it never dawned on me that anybody would leave Miami to move back to no damn Cleveland. I never did. Like, I'm not the guy that can sit here and tell you what LeBron is going to do. I don't have any particular source of information. I don't have any sort of insight, and my ability to logically deduce these things is completely thrown out the window once a man says, I'm leaving Miami to move back to Cleveland, even though his wife and his mama want to stay. I ain't got no guess for you. I can't help you. I cannot give you an answer on that. Now, it's interesting what Aaron said, that if he left, that Cleveland would tell him thank you because he delivered the championship, and that would be the only thing that mattered to them, is that he delivered a championship, so they would say thank you, LeBron James. We appreciate you for doing this. I'm not even getting to that point yet of what it'll be after the year. My thing on it is now that this is out there, now that people are whispering about it, how do the Cavs approach next season? All right, like, do you have, you've got to have a plan for what happens after this, or do you just go full on we got LeBron for 1 more year? And if you're going full on for you got LeBron for 1 more year, do you trade any of the guys that you have, or does that make you even more incentivized to trade some of the guys that you have? Like, I don't have any answer to that question, but now that more people are talking about this, and, oh, by the way, the Cavaliers have a general manager whose contract expires on June 30th, who has not been offered a contract. There is great potential, not just for chaos this offseason, but once the season starts next year, what are they going to do? Like, what's it going to be? How are you approaching this? They got to come up with some variety of plan, and the big problem for the Cavs is if you're Dan Gilbert or anybody else, you go ask LeBron what he's thinking about. We have learned LeBron ain't going to tell you at all. At all. Like my homeboy said about LeBron. LeBron the type, his wife catch him dead to rights in a lie. All he does is go to the other room. He's not telling you anything. So we are about to have what Cleveland had in 2009, 2010. Do your best to enjoy the season, but we got to figure out next year, too. All right, now, coming up next, we're back to talking about LeBron. Y'all want that Jordan conversation, don't you? We got you.